So I'm going to start this series here. I'm going to talk about handguns. If you're going to carry a handgun, things that you should and shouldn't do, different types of guns, different types of holsters. And I'm going to cover a lot of material as I do these videos over the next several weeks. But I wanted to start this one out. And the reason I wanted to start with this one is because here in the state that I live in the state of Tennessee, we have open carry, which means you do not have to have a license to carry a gun, but you do have to carry it visibly so people know that you have a gun. I'm fine with that. I got no problem with that whatsoever. What I do have a problem with is people who buy guns because we have open carry, thinking that they're cool because they have a gun, and they have no training on how to use a weapon, or they carry a gun because they think it makes them look cool. You know, one thing you don't want to do if you're out walking around is you don't want to carry a Desert Eagle 50 caliber, okay? Not really a gun you want to carry. But a lot of people don't think like that. Case in point, I went to a store, and I was standing in line, and I walked up behind this kid, probably early 20s, mid-20s, whatever have you. And he had on a Western-style belt like you would find in a Clint Eastwood movie, like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all right? With that same type of holster, to where it was canted. The belt, was high on the left side, real low on the right side. And he had in it, I believe it was a nickel-plated 357 with probably a freaking 8-inch barrel. This gun was this long, all right? Now, as soon as I saw that, the first thing I thought is, A, this kid does not need to be carrying a gun, period. Second thing I thought of, B, this kid has no idea how to use a gun. Because if he did, that would be the last gun in his arsenal that he would be carrying. You know, if you want to get a super long 357 Magnum and you want to take it out and shoot it every once in a while, that would be ignorant because the ammo is shockingly expensive for 357, especially if it's SIG. By all means, go ahead. I love revolvers. I think revolvers are cool. I would never carry a revolver. For a multitude of reasons, I would not carry one. But I could have walked up behind this kid, reached over, because it was just a holster, all right? And I'll get more into holsters, class 1, 2, and 3 later on. But I could have easily reached down there, put my finger under the grip, slid that gun right out of his holster, and he'd have never known. Then I could have beat him to death with his own gun. And by the time he figured out what would happen, it would be too late. And that got me thinking. Just because you have a right to carry a gun, should you carry a gun? Now, this kid should not have a gun. I can tell you that right now. He has no idea what he's doing because nobody in their right mind would carry that type of weapon with that type of holster on that type of belt. Nobody would do that if they had a clue on what they were doing. But if you think you want to carry a gun for whatever your reason is, I'm not here to get into reasons of why you should or should not carry a gun per se. I am going to go over some guidelines, but if you want it for defense, I don't know. If you just want to, carry a gun, whatever have you, make you feel safe, protect your property, protect your family, whatever it is. I don't know. All right. If you think you want to carry a gun, the first thing you should do, without a doubt, is seek out some professional training. Okay. That should be step one. Because I can't tell you how many times we've gotten people on the gun range. Oh, yeah, dude, I can shoot. I've been shooting for years. We give them 10 rounds. We pull them back to about 5 to 7 yards, shoot the target. And I always say the same thing. Congratulations, you've killed everybody but the bad guy. Because everybody thinks they can shoot, when in reality, they can't. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people who know how to shoot guns. But here's the deal with shooting, okay? Besides getting some training, it is a perishable skill. This is something you need to do often. You can't learn how to shoot and then go out and shoot once a year and think you're going to be proficient with your weapon because you're not, all right? It's like anything else. It's like playing guitar. You can't take guitar lessons for a year and then go out and play guitar once a year thinking you're going to get better. It's simply not going to happen. It's something you have to practice. And shooting a gun, like I said, it is a perishable skill. And you got to remember this, as you get older, you change. Your reflexes aren't quite as good. Your hands aren't quite as steady. So this is something you need to do to keep your skill at its highest possible level. And you need to shoot often. We shoot no less than twice a month. If I had the time, we would shoot every week. And there are some months that we do shoot every week. Because, like I said, it is a very perishable skill. So if you think you're going to carry a gun, the first thing you should do is seek some kind of training. Because what you don't want to do is find yourself in a situation to where you have to pull your gun out then all of a sudden, you're not sure what to do. Worse yet, if something goes wrong and there's people around the intended person, then you accidentally shoot somebody else. Because I can tell you now, if that happens, you are going to jail. It doesn't matter how many attorneys you get, you're going to jail because you just murdered somebody, an innocent person. That is why you need to get training. All right, something else you need to think about besides the formal training, and I cannot stress that enough. Once you get some training, like I said, you need to practice regularly, all right? Now, it's hard to get to a gun range once a week. I get that. It may be hard to get to a gun range once every 2 weeks, but I'm going to say once every 3 weeks at a minimum once a month. And I don't mean 10 rounds. I mean a minimum of 100 rounds you need to do because you're never going, you cannot sit there and hone your skills shooting 10 rounds a month. If you can only go once a month, you need to shoot at least 100 rounds and have an objective when you go to shoot. Your objective shouldn't be, well, let's just hit the target because you're really not improving when you're hitting a target, yay big, and you're just putting bullets everywhere. You got to have an objective when you're going to shoot. And that's one thing that we teach when we teach people how to shoot. We don't tell you to hit the target. We tell you to hit the circle. Hone in. Miss small. Miss small. Hone in on a particular spot, and you keep working to start bringing that grouping in further and further and further till you have a fairly tight grouping. And there's so many gun skills that you can train on, which a lot of it you cannot do indoors. A lot of it you have to do outdoor. When you start doing holster training and stuff like that, you have to do outdoors. But every time you go shoot, you need to have an objective. And if you're going to shoot once a month, you need to shoot at least 100 rounds. At least 100 rounds. All right? Then when you get through shooting, clean your weapon. For the love of God, clean your weapon. Because your weapon, and I never really thought about this. I have one of my guns, and I could not get the barrel out. It I got to slide it down, and it has a built-in compensator because the carbon was building up around that compensator I'll show you when I get my guns out here what I'm talking about. It's hard to explain, but I literally could not get my barrel out. I couldn't, because it had built up you couldn't even see because it's such a fine tolerance how much carbon was on there, but it was just enough to keep that barrel. I really had to struggle to get that barrel out. So now I make sure I keep my weapons clean so I can assemble them and disassemble them regularly and to help keep from malfunctioning. So clean your guns. That's an important thing. All right. Something you need to understand. When you buy a gun, you have to be ready. You have to accept the moral, legal, and lifelong consequences of using that gun, which at that point becomes lethal force. All right? There's so many things that you've got to think about when you walk out that door with a weapon, every time you walk out that door with a weapon. What if something goes wrong, and what if I have to use my gun? God forbid you accidentally shoot the wrong person if you're being attacked and you have to defend yourself. Because if that happens, you are going to jail. Doesn't matter. You're going to jail. Even if you shoot the bad guy, this guy's going to attack you, and he's coming at you, and he has ill intent, and he means you deadly harm. If you shoot him, you are getting arrested. Don't think any different. As soon as that happens, you are going to jail. That does not mean you're going to stay in jail, but you are going to get arrested and your weapon is going to be confiscated because that's what the police are going to do until they can figure out everything that happened, because they can't take a chance on you saying, hey, it was self-defense, fine. You go on home, then all of a sudden come to find out it wasn't self-defense and you've already skipped the country. You are going to jail. You will be arrested, you will be put in a car, and you will be taken down to the police station. That's something you need to think about. Every single time you walk out that door with that weapon, are you willing to accept the consequences? Now, in my case, am I willing to accept them? Yes. If I am out with my wife, my one job is to protect my wife. Now, I do have a black belt in martial arts. I do know how to fight. That's fine. If it's one-on-one, I'm good. It's probably good if it's two-on-one, depending on the guys. If it's three-on-one, then all of a sudden, now I've got a problem. And at that point, I have to think about using force at that point, because my job is to keep my wife safe. And that is one of the reasons why I carry a gun. And I carry a gun everywhere I go, so I can protect myself, but also so I can protect others. because I do carry a gun for what I do for work. And I got to be honest, I like protecting people. I like keeping people safe. You know, when they come to my work where I have my gun, while they're inside that work, I can assure you those people are safe. And until they leave my property, I can assure you those people are safe. And I accept that responsibility, because if somebody in my parking lot, if somebody in my business gets attacked and that person is going to do them lethal harm and I shoot the bad guy, I am going to get arrested. I'm going to go to jail for defending that person. Now, I live in a red state. If we can prove that it was self-defense or I was saving this other guy's life, chances are I'm going to be okay. If you live in a blue state, good luck. It's a roll of the dice. Because for some reason in blue states, they love to prosecute the good guy. I mean, for the love of God, look what they did to Daniel Penny and the hell he went through. And had I been in Daniel Penny's situation, I would have done the same exact thing Daniel Penny did. Because one thing you need to understand, when you have an attacker, you do not want to leave a chance for that attacker to attack you again. How many horror movies have you seen where they stab the bad guy, then they drop the knife? And what's the first thing everybody says? Oh my God, pick up the knife and stab him again. And that's something you have to think about. And that's what Daniel Penny was doing. Had he let that guy go, that guy could have probably got up. He may have had a weapon, he may not, but he could have gotten up and caused harm on somebody else. So he continued to hold that person, and it just so happened the person passed away. He was justifiably correct, because if you get attacked, you don't want to give the attacker a chance to attack you again. And that's something else that we will get into later in this video series. So that's something you got to keep in mind. Are you willing to accept the consequences of what will happen if it happens? All right. Something else that you need to be fully aware of if you own a weapon and you want to carry a weapon is weapon safety. All right. Now, hopefully when you get professional training, the first thing they're going to teach you, when we train people how to shoot, all right, our business is, well, it's Lifeline CPR, but it's Lifeline training is what it is. The very first thing we do when we get you on a gun range, if we're going to do formal, I mean, if it's one of my friends, they're like, hey, dude, show me how to do this. Sure, let's go. Okay, you do this, bang, 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 that's how you do it. But if you're unsure about shooting, or if you've never shot, or even if you have shot, but you're thinking about carrying and you've never carried, the very first thing we're going to teach you is weapon safety. That is going to be step one. Because what you don't want to do is accidentally shoot somebody else. Because when that happens, guess what? You are going to jail. And I can't stress this enough, okay? This is part of the responsibility of you carrying a weapon. It opens up a whole door, a garage full of legality for you when you carry that weapon. Now, with me saying that, I'm not trying to scare you out of carrying a weapon. I just want to make sure that, you know, whoever is watching this video, that they understand the ramifications of carrying a weapon. And trust me, the ramifications are very, very high. But something I cannot stress enough is making sure that that weapon is secured on your body at all times. When you have a weapon, that kid in the store had zero self-awareness. Zero. He had zero situational awareness. I could have grabbed his gun. He would have never known it until it was too late. When you put that gun on your body, you need to make sure that that gun is secured on your body every single second it is on your body. Because if somebody comes up and steals your gun, cracks you in the head with it, and runs off and shoots somebody, you're going to get arrested because it's your gun. Until all the smoke clears, you're going to get arrested. And I cannot stress the responsibility that comes with carrying a handgun, and that's why I am doing these videos. And yes, I'm looking at my computer because I got a whole list of stuff that I wrote down. All right, so before you do all this, step one, check your local laws. See what your laws are. Do you have open carry? Do you have concealment carry? Do you have to have a CCW or not? Do you have to have training, some kind of training? That is step one. Step two, get training. And this is kind of one of those things, get all the training that you can get within reason. Some training is astronomically expensive. Shop around. There's a lot of trainers out there. You can come to our class, all right, if you live in my area. If you don't live in my area, then don't call me. Too far away. But, you know, if you're in the Knoxville, Tennessee area, and, you know, if you want some training, you know, well, you know, the basic handgun training is $150. You could probably find that in just about anywhere that you live. Basic training. If somebody says, we're going to do our basic safety pistol training for $400, it's not worth it. All right? It's not worth it because you're getting basic safety and pistol training. You're not going into serious defensive training or defensive shooting or precision shooting or defensive shooting. Those will probably cost a little more because when I do it, they cost a little more. But the initial class, which lasts about 4 hours, is $150. So you should be able to find training about that point. Just about no matter where you live, you should be able to do that. Also, if you're carrying a gun, something that you might want to consider is taking a de-escalation course. Okay? When you pull your weapon, everything changes at that moment. As soon as your weapon comes out of its holster, that is intended deadly force. Okay? That now is lethal force you are going to put on somebody. When you pull that weapon out, everything changes. And the first thing that's going to happen is if somebody sees you standing out there with a weapon, is they're going to call the cops, and the cops are going to be on their way because you're out in public brandishing a weapon. Keep that in mind, okay? But something that might save you a lot of headache is being able to de-escalate the situation. And I'm going to tell you now, if you are a hot-headed person, you don't need a gun. You don't need a gun because you're going to go to jail. I can tell you that now. You're going to go to jail. So I highly recommend people take some type of de-escalation training. I don't care if you watch videos on it because that's really not a hands-on thing, de-escalation. But they will give you the guidelines, dude, it's cool. Bro, it's cool. I didn't mean anything by it. Everything's good. I'm good. Are you good? Because I'm good. I'm going to walk away. Okay? Everything's good. I don't want any trouble. Everything's good. Even if you're a badass and you're Mr. Martial Arts, you got 17 black belts and 17 different martial arts, and you can get this guy. You can beat this guy down. You're carrying a weapon. That changes everything. It changes everything. Because God forbid you decide, well, I'm going to go over and just beat the shit out of this guy. Then all of a sudden you all get in a tussle and your gun comes out of the holster. Now what are you going to do? Now you got a problem. Especially if it comes out of the holster or if it's not secured well and this guy gets his hands on it. Now you've got a problem. Step one, always de-escalation before anything else happens. So you might want to consider taking some de-escalation techniques. Also, you might want to practice your situational awareness. That is knowing what's going on around you all the time. Now, I'm sure I've talked about it on this channel 100 times probably. I have to be a security guard, an armed security guard for a year to get my instructor's license because that's just the rules of my state, and I guess I understand that. Even though I'm an instructor for everything else in the world, and I went through training. I went through armed guard training, but for some reason I have to work as a year to be, I got to be honest. I understand it, but it doesn't make sense to me. So I have to do this for a year. But I constantly practice my situational awareness, okay? In the place that I work, the place that I work has been robbed several times. So I constantly survey everybody that comes in to that building and everybody that I can see coming through that parking lot. I stay close to the door and I talk personally to everybody that comes in because that gives me a gauge right out of the gate of what's going on. Right out of the gate. If somebody walks in, I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And they're like, hey, what's going on, my brother? Which a lot of people will. Hey, it's a beautiful day. How are you doing? Beautiful day. All right. Do I relax my guard? No. But I can instantly move on to the next person coming through. Now, if this guy comes in and he doesn't respond, or he's very kind of keeping to himself, not looking at me, doesn't make eye contact, I'm going to lock in on this person instantly because that could be potential trouble that I need to be aware of. But am I going to instigate this? No, I'm not. I'm not going to stand close to this guy. I'm not going to burn holes through him, watching him, with my eyes, making sure that because then he's going to get fidgety. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay aware of everything that he does. And I'm going to stand in a way so I can hear what he's saying when he's talking to the other people where I work. That is situational awareness, being aware of what's going on around you, because that is the number one thing that will save your life. If you don't understand it, there's all kinds of videos you can watch about it. I'm going to do one about it here, and you will be able to see it on my own channel when we get done. Okay, something else you might want to think about. And this is just something I'm going to mention, insurance. They do sell insurance for people like us who carry guns just in case things go wrong. Because like I said, no matter the reason, if it is a justifiable shooting, you're getting arrested. You're going to jail. If you live in a blue state, in a blue city, with blue politicians, you're in trouble, okay? You're probably going to go to court at that point. So if you live in that, insurance is probably not a bad idea for everybody, but you also got to look at the situation of where you live, all right? Here in my red state, if it's a justifiable shooting, chances are I'm good to go. I'm going to be good to go. My weapon's going to be returned to me because what I did was in self-defense. That is my right to protect myself, my property, and my family. That is my right. Apparently, in blue states and blue cities, you don't always have that right because I can't tell you how many cases I've read about where people have defended themselves, got arrested, and ended up going to jail, and then they have to get an attorney and try to defend themselves for defending themselves, which is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. So make sure that you understand the rules and the regulations of where you live, the laws. And if you live in some place like Los Angeles, New York, you might want to consider some insurance just in case things do go wrong. Now, a couple things I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to wrap this up real quick. Carrying a weapon increases the chance that a conflict will become deadly. Okay? If you're in a conflict, if you're not very good at de-escalation, or let's say something you get caught by surprise, something goes very wrong very fast, people have a tendency to overreact. If you have a tendency to be a little hot-headed, then those people really have a tendency to overreact. And you might think that this guy justifiably done something very, very wrong to you, whatever the reason is, I don't know, and you decide to pull your weapon. And without thinking, you do the unthinkable and you pull the trigger. Okay, the amount of trouble you just got yourself into is unsurmountable. It's unsurmountable. Because you weren't cool, you didn't think about the ramifications of everything. You reacted thinking you were in danger when your life was not in danger. You're going to jail for murder. There's no getting out of it. You're now in trouble. So those are things you need to think about when you carry a weapon. All right? When you have a weapon, things can escalate very, very fast. Because if Joe Bob throws a rock at your car, you instantly get mad. You don't even have to pull your weapon. If you jump out and he sees a gun on your side, if he has a gun, chances are he's going to pull his gun. Now you've got a problem. Now you're out there on Main Street around 10,000 other people, and you're getting ready to get into a shootout. Now there's a problem. That's why and that's why I was talking about the de-escalation situation. All right? You need to think about every time you have a gun, you need to think about it. If something like that were to happen to me, I would remove my weapon, leave it in my car, then jump out of the car to see what was going on. Because I don't know what that guy's intentions are, and I don't know if he has a weapon. So before things get escalated to that level, I want to assess the situation. And I'm not just going to jump out with a gun on my side going, what the F and frickin' frack do you think you're doing, screaming at this guy, because everything just got escalated even higher. You have to think about these things when you carry a weapon. And like I said, there's so many things that you've got to run through your mind every day you leave your door with a weapon, and that is absolutely one of them. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. Real quick. I'm just going to run through a couple of things, kind of what we covered here, just in case, because there was a lot of information. Step one, know the legality. Know what the rights are. You know what your rights are. Hopefully you know what your rights are. Hopefully you understand what the Constitution is. But know what the laws are in your city and in your state. That is step one. Step two, get training. Get handgun safety training. At least get a good basic weapons class under your belt. At least. Hopefully you will seek out more training, but at least get a good weapons safety class under your belt. Step two, Practice. 3, practice with your weapon and practice often. It is a perishable skill. Train, train, train. And like I said, when you train, have an objective. Your objective is just not to go down there and hopefully hit the target. Have an objective. Make some circles, make some targets. Boom, 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 everything in the center. Aim small, miss small. Keep that in mind, okay? Have an objective when you go shoot, all right? Know your mental situation. If you're an extremely hot-headed person, you should not have a gun because you're going to get in trouble and somebody's going to get hurt. Take some type of de-escalation class. The last thing you want to do is shoot somebody, even in a self-defense situation, if there's a way to get out of it. Because just because you shot this guy and it was fully justifiable, how well are you going to be able to handle the aftermath of knowing you took somebody's life away? These are things you have to think about all the time. Depending on, everybody should check on it, but I'm going to say if you live in a blue area, in a blue state, you might want to check on insurance just in case. Because like I said, I've seen countless times where people have made justifiable shootings and all of a sudden they're in trouble. Hell, I see it on the news every day. We hear about it, the good guys getting arrested and the bad guys walking free. So you might want to check on the insurance, because if you live in that type of situation towards a justifiable shooting, but you have somebody who wants to prove a point about handguns, this could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to defend yourself. So you might want to think about, there's all types of insurance out there. I believe you can get it through the NRA, USCCA. They offer these types of insurances. I'm sure there's bunches of companies that do offer this type of insurance. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to say here about this, and we're going to move on. Learn CPR. We teach CPR at our business, Lifeline Training, and we teach bleed, okay? And I'm going to say this for a very specific reason. If something does go wrong and you accidentally clip somebody in the leg that shouldn't have been there to begin with, you might have to go over there and save that person's life. You might have to do that. Or, and I'm going to say this, and you see it on TV, if something goes wrong and the cops shoot the bad guy, what's the very next thing they do? Is they go over there and try to save their life. Because if I get in a situation to where I have to do that, and I can get the bad guy to where he's no longer a threat, if I have an option to save his life, I'm going to. I don't want anybody to die, so I'm going to. So therefore, we have training. We have trained in this. My wife and I both have medical degrees. We have a CPR company, and we've been trained in, we do full bleed training. What to do if somebody gets shot. We do all that stuff. And CPR, AED, and all that. So we have a complete understanding if something goes wrong, what are the next steps? And this is something I think everybody should think about. If you're going to carry a gun, what if something does go wrong? Or God forbid, what if you are somewhere where somebody accidentally gets shot? And you might have the opportunity to save their life through some good training. So I do recommend that you also do that. And of course, if you live in the Knoxville, Tennessee area, our company, our website is lifelinecprtn.com. Lifeline Training, you can find us on our website. You can get our number. You can get my email address from this channel, actually, and contact me through there. So if you do live in the Knoxville, Tennessee area and you do want some handgun training, CPR training, bleed training, active shooter training, we do all that here. And so these are things to consider if you're going to carry a gun. And I know this was a very long, very boring video. I do apologize for that. But we're going to start breaking this down from here and getting into more specific things. But these are things I think that I really felt I needed to cover this. Because, again, I just don't think everybody should carry a gun just because you're allowed to without training. So keep that in mind. So if you have any questions or comments, you can put it down in the comment section. I will return your comments, or you can get in touch with us through this channel, or you can go to our website, Lifeline CPRTN. It has our phone numbers, our emails, and all that stuff on it. If you want some more information on any type of training, like I said, weapons training, defensive shooting training, CPR, AED, BLS, basic life support, bleed, the whole 9 yards, active shooter, the whole 9 yards. So you can reach us through there, and I'll be putting the next video up in about a week, and we're going to cover some different aspects of shooting. The next time I'm going to go over some guns, things you should look for in guns, and holsters, different types of holsters, and how to secure your holster and all that.